So, my last video apparently struck a nerve with a lot of people. We were discussing Davi Vanity and the allegations that are out there against him. Something along the lines of about 24 women have made accusations against him of sexual abuse and sexual misconduct, especially that when it pertains to individuals under the age of 18 and unable to give legal consent. But something that we didn't discuss in that video were the other people that were affected that were not sexual abuse victims. Before we get into the topic of this particular video, I'd like to go ahead and say stick around to the end because I have some information from someone who reached out to me personally in regards to some of the content within that last video. But in this one in particular, we're going to go ahead and read a statement that came out from Jayy Von Monroe. I want to say this was back in 2016, 2017. This was posted directly to his personal Facebook page, which when you click on the link now, it's not there anymore. Since my last Davi Vanity video, 84.2% of you who have watched it are not subscribed to my channel. So do me a favor, consider subscribing, ding the notification bell so that you know every time I post new content. Leave a comment down below, like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and let me know why. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into Jayy Von Monroe's statement on why he left Blood on the Dance Floor. As an artist who has changed not only how they look physically, but how they think, write, and create, I began to feel constricted and creatively limited by the other half of the group. It started around 2014 after we had made some progression of having a real message for the young people who made up 80% of the fan base. The music sales started to go down because streaming had become the new way of listening to music instead of iTunes downloads. He panicked and insisted in writing material that was based around the older concept of the group, which was unnecessarily offensive and overly sexual. When your fan base is made of teens, these are usually subjects you'd want to avoid. When I joined at 18, I didn't feel that inappropriate about it until I became older and felt like a pervert singing these songs to kids. I went a few years touring and working for the band, but Davi insisted on not paying me. Instead, he wanted to be somewhat of a caretaker and played that role from the beginning. I allowed it because I was young and overwhelmed by the glory of being 18 and touring the nation to meet people that enjoyed the same things I did. I was too timid, and with Davi's short temper that he had displayed on many occasions by firing his employees with absolutely no reasoning, I feared that I would be next. I didn't want to push his buttons and be left with nothing. He paid my phone bill, paid my car insurance, my half of the rent, as well as my medical insurance, instead of just paying me how an employee should be. But I had enough of the weird daddy relationship. My mother would always ask why I never had any money or why I couldn't afford to go see her in my hometown of Florida. It's ruined relationships for me, with not just boyfriends, but people that worked for him and other bands we toured with. I was manipulated to dislike anyone who tried to call him out. Someone reached out to me recently and said very similar things, and I want to save that for the end of the video, and I intend to fully protect that individual's anonymity. At some point a few years into the band's career, I had a long talk with him about maybe just paying me so he didn't have to take care of me all the time. He gave in and put me on retainer that was mostly late or incomplete to our agreement. Instead, he kept me under his thumb so as to make sure I couldn't leave and was codependent on our relationship. When the band had a manager, he became responsible for paying me, and it lasted for almost a year until the manager was fired. There were times when I literally had nothing, yet Davi was spending lavishly on ridiculous novelties, custom-made clothing, and flying random girls in to stay/live with us. I finally started to work independently after getting permission from Davi in late 2014, and that's how I stayed alive. About a year ago, I had gotten very sick for a while, and then shortly after was diagnosed HIV positive and needed to get medication and medical help started. Yet there was a tour that was booked for the band. As I saw it, there won't be a tour if I'm physically not up to it, but Davi saw it differently. He just kept pushing it in my face that we couldn't afford to cancel the tour, and that any medical help that I need would just have to wait until we came back for my treatment. He couldn't afford to cancel the tour because of the extreme $60,000 debt Davi had put himself in, despite just having bought himself a new car. So I reluctantly agreed, against my better judgment, to go out on tour and was dragged all through the country, sick as a dog, and waited it out. The tour ended up being a total bust. The attendance was lower than ever before. The fans were being charged an arm and a leg for VIP meet and greet that either was late and rushed because Davi was in the hotel with a girl, or it was canceled completely because the shows weren't happening. Dates were canceled left and right by promoters and venue owners that had heard about Davi's reputation. When we finally got home, I immediately got treatment, and after a few months had passed and a new health routine, I was back to myself. I am now undetectable and healthy, according to my doctors. I am very lucky and especially thankful to everyone who had been there with me along the way. In October, we released Scissors, the last album we did together. I wrote every song on the deluxe version with the exception of 2. Davi paid me $1,000 to write all of that material in less than 2 weeks, period. It was just too much work for too little money, and after that happened with the last tour and just a general feeling of being taken advantage of by Davi for a long time, I left the band. Yeah, any reasonable person would have done that, Jayy Von. It's kind of shocking that you managed to stick it out for that long, but I mean, I get it. You were young, you didn't really know better. It is what it is. Moving on to the last part of the statement, it reads, I needed a new life. I couldn't live in that situation anymore. Yet I had nowhere to go, and he knew that, so he took advantage of what he could until I couldn't take it any longer. So I left. Davi ended up abruptly moving to Ohio with his then girlfriend, and I was left essentially homeless. So I ended up moving back to Arizona with my friend, and I'm living a quiet desert farm life in Tucson while I rebuild my life and start a new career. Recently, Davi opted to continue to tour his Blood on the Dance Floor, still selling merch with my name and face on it, signing my name onto posters I've never seen or touched, and obviously still playing music I wrote for him. On top of not being paid for any of these merch sales using my likeness, he's now saying that he's out on stage performing in my honor, obviously trying to capitalize on my illness as he has referred to it to fans. I feel his statement about me was insensitive and unnecessary. I have been through hell and back, and I'm still fighting, and I feel like I'm being mocked by him as some kind of cruel joke. I've always told fans to not be afraid to speak your mind and embrace your true self, so I'm taking my own advice. My piece is now said, I'm closing the book on it. I still love music and will continue to create. I love all the people who have stood by me all these years and who will still continue to stand with me during these times of new growth. You are all the only reason I exist. Thank you all. So I may end up doing another follow-up to this particular video as well, because as it stands as of March 18th, 2020, Jayy Von has been in contact with Chris Hansen and was even part of a Have a Seat episode to say more on the subject. But that brings me to the last portion of this video that I wanted to discuss with you guys. I had someone reach out to me in the comment section of my last video, and they provided me some interesting information that could just be speculation, and again, nothing can truly be confirmed out of this. I'm going to respect their anonymity as well as any other people that may be involved in this particular situation. So this particular person says that they were warned by a member of another band that was touring with Blood on the Dance Floor to avoid Davi at all cost and to protect themselves as well as their younger sibling. He said specifically that this guy is evil and that he hooks up with girls, but that this particular individual would be no exception. And when I say girls, I'm referring to younger girls. This individual said that Davi's inner circle knew all about what Davi does and they cover it up for him, like they protect him like some form of a shield, and that would extend out to his attorneys, meaning Davi's attorneys, and that there's possibly NDAs that some of these victims may or may not have been forced to sign. And if I'm not mistaken, anyone under the age of 18 cannot sign any kind of legal agreement. I don't believe that it would be legally binding. I'm not any kind of expert in law whatsoever, so don't take my word for that. But I would say this, if anyone happened to have broken any of these NDAs that they unwittingly signed or illegally signed, they would have considered the fact that they might face legal ramifications and would have potentially issued a public apology to address the situation. Otherwise, they could potentially be charged with slander or worse. This could also potentially be the reason why Jeffree Star spoke out against Davi Vanity and then later retracted his statement. Now bear in mind, this is purely speculation on my end, so I have no way of knowing whatsoever, and I can't say that that is without a shadow of a doubt a fact. But I have a hard time believing that Jeffree Star would actually be complicit with this kind of behavior, especially after going out of his way to call this individual out. This person also told me that the individual they were in contact with said that everybody around Davi at that particular point in time, and probably now, couldn't stand him, did not like him, and that he's a narcissist. He's very much into himself and thinks that he is the center of the world. But one thing I can say for certain that this person confirmed to me was in fact that Jeffree Star did in fact see Davi Vanity taking young girls back to his tour bus. But that's going to be pretty much it for this video, guys. I just wanted to get this information out there. I'm aware that other people have provided this information as well, and quite frankly, when I made the last video, I was in a little bit of crunch time, so I wasn't able to do exactly what I wanted to. So that's why I'm making this follow-up. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.